Let me show you something wild. I'm gonna go inside Firefox console, write this code snippet, hit enter and get 3 random numbers. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and take these numbers and write these into this program that I just created. And I'm gonna hit enter and it's gonna give me a few more numbers. Now I will go back here and you can see I don't have anything else. I have not written math.random by myself, but let me run this program again. Let's take a look at what has happened. So 0.5466 is this exact number with the last decimal place as well. 0.137 is the next one. 0.327 is the next one. And if I keep doing this, you will see I will get 0.371 again over here, 33 here, and 125 here. So I'm able to actively predict what is going to be the next math.random call inside of Firefox browser. This is not a trick. I'm not doing any sort of trick here. Math.random as a function is completely predictable. Let's discuss about how this works. So I came across this blog post which tells you predicting this math.random in Firefox using Z3 SMT solver, and it's a good read, but I just feel that there could be more content in explaining what's going on with all of these code snippets, which is what I will attempt to do in this specific video. Now, this would get a little bit on the math side, so bear with me. It is interesting, but it could be boring for some of you who are not really math nerds. But I'll try to make it simple for you and I'll try to not get into too many details, but I will give you explanation and things and links and resources for you to dive deeper. See, so if we talk about math.random, most people think that this is just something that is, just randomly giving you a number out of nowhere, like it's just coming up with something, but that is not true. Math.random is deterministic. What this means is that you can predict what this number would be even if it doesn't seem like on the face value, right? You can't seem to see a pattern if you just look at the number, but there is a pattern. So math.random, basically, if you look inside here, for example, if I just even open console here and if I start writing, you will see that if I write math.random here, you will see that this is native code, right? So I cannot debug it further. It is a piece of code which is written inside, not inside JavaScript, which you cannot see. So there is nothing to see inside browser. So we have to discuss what exactly or how exactly the implementation works. See, in case of math.random, there are two things. Basically, state A is one variable, and then there is a variable called state B. Now, these two variables are basically the variables that figure out and decide that what math.random's output would be. So there is an algorithm here that takes these two variables, and these are like two numbers, two big numbers, and then we run it through this algorithm and we get the result of math.random from this algorithm. Now, what this algorithm is, it's a very predictable algorithm. Just like, we have hash functions, which for every given input will produce the same output. It's not a hash function in a way because it's just a simple mathematical algorithm, which we can reverse as well easily as you clearly saw me doing. And you can get back these two numbers. Now, the way this algorithm is designed and the way this works is that there are ways to efficiently reverse what you got from math.random to figure out what this variable 1 and variable 2 are, the state A and state B. But you can't do it alone with just a single value. That's why I input three separate values which I figured out. Let's take a look again at this, what we did. So instead of 3, let me just extend this to, let's say 10 over here, right? So we have 10 math.random values. Now from this point onwards, let's say if I bring in my terminal over here and if I write bun start and I give it these three values, again, something that I'm doing in front of you, right? So there is no editing or nothing going on over here. And if I hit enter, you will see that we have these three values and it's figuring out this internal state. What it's doing is it's figuring out these two variables, these two numbers. And once we have these two numbers, we would be able to predict rest of the numbers in the chain. And as you can see, we figured out that state A in this case was this and state B was this. And you can see these numbers match exactly what we have here. So 0.148, 0.9707 and 0.525 and 65 and 61 and 425 and so on and so forth. In fact, we just have it until here, but we know after this 0.667 will come. And let me show you how that would work. So if I add this, you can see that 0.66783 is the output that we get. If I hit enter, I will get a different number, which is the next number in the sequence because we have already seen that number, right? So Firefox internally already called it. So when I actually pressed enter, it gave me the next number in the sequence, right? I hope that makes sense. So what is this A and B and what is this algorithm? What is happening over here? Let's try to understand that a little bit. See, if we start to open this algorithm box, like what's this algorithm doing? It's doing something along these lines. Let's try to understand what this is, all of this, and what all of this means, right? So this T over here that you see it's the same t, or it's the state A that you see over here is the same state A that I'm talking about over here in this algorithm, right? And the state B is the same state B which we are talking here. If we talk about numbers, this is the number state A and this is state B. So what we do is we first of all make a copy of state A, right? We store it in t, assume that this is a variable. We do the same thing with state B. So we copy these two numbers in different variables. Now for state A, we change it to state B, right? Because we keep on mutating these states for the next random numbers, right? So state A immediately becomes, this variable immediately becomes S, which is your state B, right? And for computing what would be the state B value, we do these three operations. So we take state A, initial, the original one, and we XOR it with left shifting its bits 23 times. And we then XOR it again, right shifting its bits 17 times. So these are like mathematical operations, and we'll get to it also, like what these mean. Now, before we get into like what's exactly happening here, let's actually try to understand line by line and operation by operation what's going on here. So first things first, what XOR operation basically means is it's an exclusive OR, right? So it's an exclusive OR. What this means is that it will do an OR, which is like, it'll output 1 if present, only if at least one of the inputs is also 0, right? So 0 XOR 1 is 1, 1 XOR 0 is also 1, 1 XOR 1 is 0 because it's exclusive, right? So it both cannot be 1, and 0 XOR 0 is also 0, right? So this is the operation which stands for XOR, right? In this case, in case of T and S, if these are like big numbers, like I mentioned state A and state B, they will be converted into their binary form 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1, and this would be performed for every bit, right? So they'll be arranged together and it will be done for every bit. Now, if we look at this state A and state B over here and consider these examples, imagine that this is like a bit sequence, right? It's a binary sequence of what state A and state B would be. This is like arbitrary number, so don't worry about this, what this is exactly. What we are doing effectively here is that this is 23 right now, but imagine if this is 5, you are effectively adding 5 zeros here, or in that case, in the above case, you are adding 23 zeros here, and you are just dropping everything on the left, right? That is why these two arrows which are there, they are double arrows on the left side because they are shifting the number, right? So as the note here says that the leftmost bits A to E fell off the edge, which are gone, and the 5 rightmost slots are filled with 0. So these 5 become 0, or in this case, this part of the equation will make the state A last 23 digits 0, and then rest of the digits would be, shifted. So this is how it would look like, right? So the original number was like this. If you left shift it by 5, and you can see over here, this number over here, if you read it from here, 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 1 1 is the same as this 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 1 1, right? So it has been shifted 5 places on the left side. And then when you XOR it with this thing, T and T XOR whatever this is, the result comes out to be something over here. But if you are careful, you will see that the initial bits are unchanged. Why? Because you're adding all the zeros on the right side, right? When you are left shifting, all the zeros come on the right side, and we know from this table over here, if there is at least 1 0, the result basically is same. Look at this. Every time there is a 0, even if we don't know what the second placeholder is, we know that the result is the second placeholder itself in the first place, right? So if we make this, for example, something that we don't know, right? Let's say if I remove this, you can see that every time there is a 0 present in the equation, we know that the output is whatever this question mark was, right? So we can safely say that these bits which are at the very end would be unchanged. Now in the next line, you see that we are doing the same operation but the other way around, right? Earlier we were shifting 23 bits on the left, now we are shifting 17 bits on the right. So in that case, this would be different. You can see a smaller example of this is the same thing over here. You have your number, you shift it 3 times on the right, and this time the same things appear here on the left side of the, of the number, and this one gets scrambled. This is same again because there are all the zeros which are filled over here. But remember that we are operating with whatever result that we got from the previous line, right? So this T now is no longer just the state A which we are initially known it for. Now in the final step, which is this final line which we are doing, this basically now, because you already know the operations, it will do the same thing and it will just mix and match everything, right? So after this step, no unchanged zones left. So everything is scrambled. The whole number is scrambled, right? And then once this is done, you can see you will just sum up these two numbers, T plus S, and you will just keep a segment of these numbers and you will use that for creating Math.random value. Now what happens generally for 64 bits output is these numbers 23, 17 and 26. So these are like fixed numbers which are there. It's not like these numbers are changing, and they finally create this Math.random value over here, right? Now this final number that is created, this sum, this 64, all these 64 bits over here, the upper 11 bits are discarded and the lower 53 bits are kept, which is used as a mantissa, right? So these lower 53 bits are are used to get the value of math.random over here, and rest of the bits are discarded. Now you might be asking like, what's going on and how do we get from here back to all the way to, these two numbers, which is state A and state B, because these are the ones which are used to predict what comes next. So what you have to realize is that every time you get a math.random, you are keeping these 53 bits of information, right? And you're discarding these 11 bits. So we don't know what these 11 bits were because they were never delivered to us, but we do know these 53 bits because that is what math.random is, right? This operation over here. If we do it 3 times, you would have 53 bits of information from here. And because this is a predictable algorithm, we know it just changes state A and state B very properly, deterministically. The next time it does that, we have 53 more bits of information. And then finally, we have 53 more bits of information. At the third try, we have 159 bits of info with us, right? About this number. But the moment we have this, you would see that from our initial state A and state B, we only need 128 bits of info because state A is 64-bit and state B is 64-bit. This whole algorithm is called as XOR shift. I think I did not talk about this, but this is called as XOR shift 128, right? Which is also what something this blog post highlights, XOR shift 128 plus. This algorithm is implemented by Firefox, right? So what we are doing over here, figuring out math.random and how it works, this algorithm is XOR shift 128 plus, which is now what we are going to reverse engineer. Now running this at least 3 times gives us enough information to figure out how do we go back to state A and state B. So how do you understand this? What do you mean when I say 128 bits of info and 159 bits of info over here? So see, 128 over here obviously comes from the 2 numbers that we are figuring out, the state A and state B that we have talked about so much, this A and B, and both of them are 64-bit numbers, right? So there are 64 either 1 or 0 in representing this number and this number. So this is like 128 bits of information that we need, and 159 bits comes from the fact that 53 bits is the information that we get. So a better way to understand this is, for example, something that we have all done. If I give you an equation, something like x plus y is 10 and x minus y is 2, you can just add these 2 equations. So 2 equations, 2 variables, you will say that 2x is 12, x is 6. And once x is 6, you can substitute it over here and y becomes 4 automatically, right? So you're able to solve this equation because you have the same number of equation as the unknown variables. Think of it in a similar way where these 53 bits of information is giving you some information about the internal state of this whole architecture, right? Think of this as 53 equations, let's say, instead of this. And what you have to solve for is 128 equations, right? Because there are 128 unknown variables in the placeholders, and with one number, you just got 53 numbers over here. So you do it again, and you do it again, and the third time when you do it, you end up with 159 bits of information, right? Another way analogous to think about this from an equation point of view is 159 different equations for something that requires 128, equations to solve. Because you see, if you look at the number that is here, if I go ahead and look at this number, this specific number alone can be created by a lot of states where A and B are various values, right? So A could be a lot more values than just whatever we know, which can output that specific number. When we have 2 consecutive numbers like this and this, it reduces the states dramatically. And by the third number, it basically reduces it to just one combination. That's why we are able to get this pair instantly, recovered state A and B. Otherwise, if we just give it 1 or 2, there could be multiple A's and B's which are available. Now, how do we recover that in the first place? That's like, just like I explained to you, it's basically solving a bunch of equations and these operators. And for this, we use a library called Z3. Now, this is a library which helps us perform these equations and solve this, right? Which is also highlighted in this blog post, where you can see that this Z3 is a package. I implemented this in JavaScript where we are using Z3 as a native function. So Z3 is literally like a CLI that I can install and I can parse the output from, right? So that is what we are using in the program itself. I'll have this program in the description. If you want to check it out, you can check it out. So the idea here is that for Z3, we'll give it all these numbers, math.random, these 3 math.random numbers over here, and we'll ask it, like, what is something that satisfies this constraint of A and B, right? So if I have these 2 numbers and I have this algorithm which is running over here, it's doing these operations and it's giving me these 3 numbers. So based on this, tell me what are the possible values of this A and B, right? So it's basically doing nothing but figuring out A, or our state A, and our state B from here by solving all these equations that we have given it. And it gives you the state A and B over here, right? And once you have state A and B, it's basically basically nothing. You don't have to do anything beyond that point, right? For example, if I give this again to you, see that if I copy this number, give this 1, copy this again, give this 2, and then finally I give this again as well, you will see that once you have these 3 values going, this would automatically solve for internal state. It could take like a little while in solving the problem, but once it's done, once it's figured out the A and B part, it can spit out the exact next values, 0.380, 0.81, 0.023, 203, 0.6990, which is there, right? Now, this is super interesting because if you look at this, you will find that this actually does not work for node, right? Let's say if I paste this over here and if I exit this now, and if I run the same program again, you will see, let's paste this, third number, you will see that it does not get any solution for this because node does not implement the algorithm that we figured out, XOR shift 128 plus, in its current form that Firefox is doing. So whatever the algorithm that we have created in the code base itself, it's not using it exactly in that way. That does not mean that Node or Chrome or any of these browsers are not vulnerable or they are safe to use Math.random. It's just that they're using something else as an algorithm, which you can also reverse engineer. So that's what, that is why, it's not very wise to use Math.random for anything which is security sensitive. If you're doing something security sensitive, don't do it with Math.random. There is a crypto package that actually generates pseudo random numbers, which is something that you can't guess, right? Just like we did over here. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. A little fun party trick. If you are going to a JavaScript party, you can, show your friends how Math.random is something which does not really is what it says, like a lot of people in the world. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you like the video, and I will see you in the next one very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment, "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.